We're just waiting for everybody to join in. So welcome.
Hello, hello.
Hi, everybody. Hello. Nice to meet you, see you all. Lots of friends, lots of recognizing names.
It's coming across on
Geez.
not in your ear.
Don't worry, guys. Yeah, if I can ask everybody to mute themselves, unless they want to say hi in the first few minutes, that's no problem. If you want to quickly say hello to each other.
Let me say hello to Ulick Meisner, Cyrus Thomas here from Florida. Remember me?
Hello, this is Dr. Taji from Amravati, India.
Hello, nice to meet you. Nice to see you.
Same here.
Hello, everybody. I am Dr. Jatin from India.
Hi, everyone. Hi. So we're just going to wait a couple more minutes as there's quite a few people still coming in and joining. Yeah.
And what we're going to do is share the load, and Marco's going to introduce proceedings with a presentation on the topic of AI and, broadly speaking, the do's and don'ts from our perspective and from our research. And then I'm going to show you the tool that we've built, which is freely available as long as you're signed up to ChatGPT, and which will be easily linked from the new version of RadarOpus, which will be coming out soon. And then we're blessed to have Dr. Gabriel Blass with us as well, and he's going to be sharing his experience of using AI to help in his practice with a case study.
Wonderful.
We're recording. We upped the capacity just now, so there's 185 in the room, which is awesome. And we'll keep letting you in. The other housekeeping things are, if you wish to, I think with so many of us here, we need to stay muted, please, and use the chat at any point. Just you can message, the whole group, and we'll respond to the chat when we're not presenting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Luke, for the introduction. Basically, we will try and stop every now and then to answer questions. If there's no time, we will answer them in the end. So to remind everybody, hello again, I'm Marco, one of the directors of ZeusSoft. Luke, as we said, is the scientific coordinator. We've got Gabriel Blass, doctor from Scotland, who's going to show us some interesting findings on AI, and also Sarah Honey, who is our collaborator at ZeusSoft as well. I'm going to ask again everyone to mute themselves, please, because I can hear some background noise. So if you could kindly do that. Okay, I'm just going to just add a couple more people who are coming in, so we got everybody in there. Or actually, Sarah, if you can keep admitting, then I'll just get going.
Yes, we have a number. Okay, we'll go on.
Yeah, just keep on.
Okay.
So I've got a tiny little presentation, but I'm just gonna first give you a bit of an introduction. So we decided to do this, this webinar because over the last year to year and a half, we have spoken to many of you, authors, colleagues, many people in the community who had questions, doubts, interests on AI. And what we tend to do as a company normally is, rather than just jumping at things and sort of try to do things in the fast lane, we try to always look at what we have, do the research, try to understand what we have, and then try to bring out something which is useful for the community. That's how we've always, managed ZeusSoft as a company. So we really do try and do that. And we noticed that there were recurring questions we were getting from homeopaths mainly, who wanted to try and figure out what to do with AI, how to use it. And so we prepared this, this webinar to just show you basically our findings, what we understand, what we know, and how to use it. I would like also to stress that we are not, superheroes of AI. There's a lot of experts out there who call themselves experts, And I would humbly like to say an expert is someone who works 24/7 in a field. So that's not what we are. We are enthusiasts. We are dedicated to the community. And of course, we work every day with tools like this. So what we hope to be able to do today is to basically show you what we've done so that you don't have to do it, the mistakes that we made so you don't have to make them, and some really practical tips on basically what to do and not to do. So without further ado, I'm going to go straight into my presentation, and let's see. So if you can just tell me whether you can see it. Can you see the presentation? Luke, is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. Great. So what is AI, everybody? So I'll do the little academic part if you want, the boring one. So artificial intelligence is a technology that enables computers, machines to stimulate human learning, comprehension, problem solving, decision making, creativity, and autonomy. I hope you all know this by now. Or simply, just to have a bit of a laugh, a jump in computational capability. So some of you who are as old as me or a little bit older may remember Clippy from Windows 98, you know, the little helper we used to have on Microsoft. You could say that AI is like Clippy on steroids. So basically, you know, something that helps you with certain tasks, if you will. But the big question is, what can it help you with? What to do, what not to do? So a large language model, LLM, is essentially a trained statistical model, not a deep thinker. And that's something that we've noticed in conversations with people quite often over the last year to year and a half. So I'm just going to try and explain to you very, very simply what it's based on. One, correlation. Two, stochastic processes. Correlation simply means that it will try and find the same words that appear together in a million sentences, i.e., if you write something and the LLM model tries to look for a reply, it's going to see whether two things appear close to each other. So if you say, how are you? It's going to look at human language and it's going to notice that the reply, I am fine, is much more likely to exist compared to I'm goat. I'm not a goat, I'm fine. And so it will give you that answer. Stochastic processes, similarly, it's basically a generation of sequences of words based on distribution of probability in a given context. Sounds fancy, it's not, it's very simple. If you write the cat at the, or at the, sorry, it's far more likely that the last word is going to be mouse because a cat eats mice instead of a T-Rex, which no longer exists, okay? So the LLM model tries to find the most likelihood answer based on your question, okay? And that's why large language models can hallucinate. Hallucination means that it can happen that you say, hey, what's the most likely food that the cat is going to eat? And it could say to you, oh, T-Rex. So it can happen that it will say the wrong thing. And that's why we sort of say, okay, be careful when you use large language models because they can't be trusted fully, but they can be very useful. Okay, so let's quickly look at what we can do and we can't do. And remember, I'm not God. I'm just one of the guys in the company who has been, researching. So I would say, of course, do your own research, try things out. So one, don't trust it fully, meaning if you ask the same questions, exactly the same questions 3 times to the same model or 3 different models, you may get a slightly different answer each time. That's not a bad thing, but you need to be aware of it because it means that it's not necessarily consistent in the same way. Obviously, do not supply personal data or patient data. Remember, you're feeding information to a model which could record and basically reuse the data. It's unlikely that it will, but we have no certainty over it. And of course, you may lose ownership of what you insert. So don't upload copyrighted content. That's not a really important thing. Try and be careful. If it's your own notes and you don't mind, it's fine. If it's maybe, something that the patient wrote and you're not writing their name, surname, age, that's also okay. But just beware that even if they say, the model is not being trained, if you pay, we have no certainty. Nobody has any certainty. So I would just tread carefully. And of course, don't cheat, okay? I say that because we've had several conversations with owners, managers of schools, homeopathic schools already, coming to us, being a little worried and going, hey, we have students who are using AI models to basically, do the homework and try to find shortcuts. This happened back in my days when I was at uni with Wikipedia. So essentially, use the tool to help, but don't try and get shortcuts, because at the end of the day, what makes a great homeopath is their own learning curve. So, humble piece of advice. So what can you do with AI? Absolutely get a different perspective on things. You can use it really as an assistant. You can ask it a question. You can ask it to think in a different way or get an opinion on certain things. You can use it to do the legwork, okay? So you can ask it to summarize complex theories. You can ask it to speed up your work in certain ways. And of course, AI models can go really deep. I mean, some of the stuff that, for example, Luke has done is very, very technical. He may wish to show you later on, but that depends on how much training you've got yourself on the model, because the model will reply based on how cleverly you ask the questions. So that's also something that I would say, I would invite you to basically try and do, test it and see how it responds. But don't give for granted that the information that you are being given is correct. That's really, really important. So what is likely to happen in the short term with AI? Dedicated bots. So, for example, on our website, we have a bot assistant. So RadarOpus.com, bottom left, you can click on it and you can already ask it really interesting questions on our programs. You can get, it's support. There's a lot of stuff there. How is that made? We have basically trained it with our own information. So useful stuff like that. AI modules. Of course, we are working on AI technology to provide you products which are going to come out, and they are going to be integrated with our programs. One of them you're going to get today. We're going to show you. Longer term, because a lot of people also say, okay, but what's going to happen, 5-10 years? I have no idea. But from what I can see, it is very likely that new computers will probably come already loaded with LLMs. So in a future that I don't think is too far away, you'll probably be buying devices that already have this capability locally. And that will completely change the way that we work for sure. And of course, if it's internal, there is less risks because you're not giving your information away to someone else. So what should we do as an homeopathic community? What are we doing? Learning the technology. So don't be afraid. Know what you shouldn't do. So don't give a personal information, but absolutely learn, play with it, and use it to your advantage. And just remember, if you use anything free, so free models, normally you are the product. So just be careful with what you feed it. And what are we building for homeopathy as a company? So some people have asked me over the last few months, especially, oh, Marco, why haven't you brought out like lots of AI features and lots of AI products already? Some people already have. The short answer is because as a company, we're based in Belgium, and I think we are very European in the way that we work. No offense to any Americans, but historically, the American approach is first you sell, then you test. We're the opposite. We're very European. So first we test, then we sell. And we did a lot of tests. I can tell you, we even worked with a company who is very, very close to Google. And we, quite frankly, were just not satisfied with the results. We didn't want to give something to homeopaths that was just not good enough. So we would rather wait and do things properly. And we are working on, I think, rather than AI tools and technology to help homeopaths do their job right. Because in the end, as a homeopath, you're treating people. We're very aware of that. The health of people is in your hands. And as a company that provides tools and products that help you, we need to make sure that what we give you works. So we will be bringing out really interesting things, but we're treading carefully to make sure that what we give you is, of course, works and it's right. We are providing you today with if you want, a free gift, which Luke is going to show you. And what this free gift is essentially is an assistant based on ChatGPT. I won't dive too much into it, but it's something that Luke especially has been heavily training for months. And I want to tell you a little bit of why this is useful. Because with LLM models, the more you use them in a specific way, the better answer they will give you. So the whole point of providing you something like this is that it's been heavily trained with classical homeopathy, so you don't have to go and spend your time doing that. It's not the kind of thing that will help you to just, find complex cases. That's up to you to do. You're the homeopath. But it can help you in many other ways Luke is going to show you. And why is it free? Because it's a free community product. So we thought, why should we charge you for something that we've just trained ourselves? So it's a bit of gift. We'll hope you'll enjoy it. Luke is going to show you how that works. And finally, before I close, the big questions that have been asked from day one from everybody in the community: is AI going to take over homeopathy? Again, I have no idea, but I would say I think absolutely not. Because I would like to say, homeopathy is a science. It's an art as well. There's a bit of magic in it for sure. But from my humble experience, an experienced homeopath has something that a large language model is never going to have. Your ability as a professional to understand a human being in its whole is something that is far beyond the capabilities of a large language model. It doesn't mean that in future AI models may not be able to do that well, but for now I think we can just be sure that these are things that we can use to our advantage. It's certainly not the large language models that will take advantage of us. So there you go. I hope that was clear enough. Thank you for listening to the first part. And Luke, I think over to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Marco. And there's been... Right, can you hear me okay? Because apparently my mic was down quietly. I don't know why Zoom did that. It's at 100% now, and it's a good quality mic. So,
Luke, sorry, are you able to stop my share? Because somehow I can't. I don't know why.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Stop participants sharing. There we go.
Okay, thank you, mate.
Okay. So what we have is a screen from the new RadarOpus, which will be coming out soon, I think. And the changes in the welcome screen, there's a button which takes you to this homeopathic assistant, Homeopathic Practice Partner, it's called. And the link is in the chat there. So this is it's a product that, as Marco said, it's not only for RadarOpus people. Anyone can use it who's interested in homeopathy and wants an assistant that's had some training, essentially. And, look, let's face it, ChatGPT has been trained by every single interaction any homeopath has had with it, and it can access innumerable quality sources of information from the internet. So it's just a question of pointing it to the right resources. And also I've uploaded specific files from my own teaching materials so that it can draw upon that. And the skill with AI is in how you prompt it. It really is. You can't just lazily expect it to answer things for you, because it's designed to sort of finish your sentences for you, really. It's there to please you. And especially ChatGPT, from what I understand, is it's quite prone to, bigging you up. So you've got to take everything it says with a pinch of salt. But those concerns do come down a little bit. So if I click here and open it up, this is the Homeopathic Practice Partner, and it's got a few sort of queries that you can.
Luke, you've muted yourself. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it wasn't me.
Okay.
Someone else muted me.
It's okay. You're back on.
There's a theme. I'm too quiet. I'm too loud. I'm muted. My
I can hear
keyboard's
you fine, by the
cracking.
way.
I'm so sorry, everybody. Sorry for everything. Okay. So there's a few sort of queries you can begin with, or you can just launch into anything yourself. The thing that it's been trained in so far, it has a stripped down text document of Kent's repertory, all of the symptoms of Kent's repertory, no remedies. And it's got this file which takes normal language that a person would use and suggests the terminology that is used in a repertory. So if it looks in that file and it finds something like craves, it will know that it needs to look for desire based on the files that it has. And then it has, basically, I've been working with AI to write code, essentially, write Python code. And this started as a project in Python, which is, programming environment. And essentially, I was trying to build a semantic search tool where you can input more fuzzy language that a patient would use and have it search for that and pass that into a repertory. So I've kind of converted what we wrote in code into pseudocode that it has available. And then basically what I did was ask ChatGPT, how should I instruct the GPT in the best way to get the best results? And so I worked with a regular ChatGPT to understand how best to train this one. And it's also got some training on miasms and the Mappa Mundi. And what else? And some some fundamental philosophy and different repertory techniques. It understands the Clark's idea of the three-legged stool. So you can say, look at these symptoms from a patient. Let's build an analysis based on the three-legged stool idea, where you have, perhaps one mental, one general, one physical, or that sort of thing. So let's just show you the rubric finding aspect of it. So this is kind of the most specific query. So it's going to take a piece of text, and I thought I could just grab something from a proving and feed that in and see what happens. Oops. So I'll just delete these things where it mentions the potencies, because that might confuse it. And it should really, look, it's still an LLM, so it will still make things up, but it is going to base it on Kent's repertory, which is good. And it's simpler and it's smaller than synthesis, so it can't go off track so much. Okay. One of the things that, an LLM does very well is it, just organizes information for you in super quick time. And that's another big bonus of it. You can put in, anonymous material from patients' transcript, and it will, it will find themes for you. It will say, this looks like, a sort of golden thread running through it. It will organize it very quickly into psychological, urinary system, if that's there. It will just find those things.
Now, just to add one thing, Luke. Also, to make you understand why this may be more useful than just going on ChatGPT and going on it randomly, is that when you use something that hasn't been trained, it's much more likely to just find random information from internet and lie to you. We had examples where me and Luke were looking at things and saying, for example, can you bring me, rubrics just from Kent? And a normal LM would just go, oh yeah, sure, blah, 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 blah. And it was a total lie. Whereas this has been trained much more heavily to try and avoid doing that.
Yeah, yeah. Even if it's like some of these might not be totally correct, but you can see that they're Kentian in style, and that if you have homeopathic training, you'll be able to go and take that and then delve further. And it basically is designed to have a tone which is like collegial, which is like supervisory, like you're peer to peer working together on a case. It always prompts you to kind of reflect on something, and it doesn't give medical advice. It's not designed to say what remedy you should prescribe or anything like that. But of course, when you drill down into it, it allows you to, it might suggest a remedy, and you could say, I'm thinking about colchicum autumnale. Please find everything you can on that remedy that fits with the material I showed you, and it will do that very well. And it's been briefed to use certain sources from Homeo International, the website, like Clark and Herring, Burrick, because there's a lot of good material on that website. And it's also been briefed to use Scholten's website, cure.com, and into homeopathy. So just let me see the questions here. It does work in other languages, but it translates from your language into English and then back again. So it's only as good as those translations, but you can certainly give it a try. Okay. You just have to have a normal subscription to ChatGPT to use it. Yeah, you just have to sign up. Let's just see. Can it extract? No. Exactly. No, we've been very careful with what we've given it full access to. It's been given all of Kent's rubrics, and it can pass those and look at those. So it's been told here to run my next query and all others in this thread in the same way. So if I now go, always say please and thank you. It's only polite.
Yeah, just want to say as well. So some people are asking if this is available in previous versions of RadarOpus. I just want to say no. This is coming out in the new version of RadarOpus, which is out next week. However, we have embedded it in the program, but you can actually access this free even if you don't have RadarOpus. This is literally a present that we've made for the community, regardless of whether you own RadarOpus or not. The advantage in RadarOpus is that it's embedded in the page. So you open RadarOpus and you have it right there, but it's not using RadarOpus content. So there is a link, I think it was at the beginning, we can provide it again. And so if you don't want to use RadarOpus and you don't own it and you just want to use the tool, you can do that as well.
Nice. I'm just going to feed it a bit more and
in a way, we sort of try to do this also to start creating a bit of a safe environment for everybody, because like Lucas said, this has been trained to give a certain voice, to give replies of a certain kind. And basically, yeah, we thought it would be useful for people. Also, if you have students, you can basically, say to students, don't try and just get, a remedy, but you can use it to help you study, for instance.
yeah. So I don't think it got didn't actually copy what I wanted it to. Never mind. Yeah. I'm just going to see if there's any other questions in here.
Luke, would you be okay to share the link in the chat of the assistant?
Yeah, of course. I did
I'll
share
send you
it. I
the
did share it earlier, but I can share
Yeah,
it.
no. Yeah, just shove it in
There
there.
it is.
Yeah, there you go. So
Yeah.
Luke has just shared the link. So again, you can access it if you have RadarOpus from next week. If you don't have RadarOpus, here it is for you already in the chat.
Mm.
Present for everyone.
Good. What I'll do now is I'll hand over to Dr. Gabriel and let him show us how he's been using AI. And I think you've just been using the regular ChatGPT, as far as I know. Yep.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, so I'll hand over to you, and then maybe we can come back to this at the end if there are more questions. So
Okay.
I'll share there.
Let's see. Okay. Let's go to the first one. Okay. Just make everything visible. All right. I would like to show you a case of malignant osteopetrosis. And this is first consultation in March 2024 of a 4.5-month-old baby boy who was born at 38 weeks. He had tachypnea before discharge, which is rapid breathing, and was given antibiotics for a presumed infection. It was discovered that he had thrombocytopenia, which is low platelets, and they were fluctuating. They were not terribly low, but they were fairly low. It was significant. He had dropped all his centiles within the first 2 months of life, and his head circumference was down by 25%. So this is a child that has failure to thrive. He struggled to feed, and despite being put on fortified milk, had poor weight gain and poor growth. I am trying to remove something that's blocking my view here. That's good. Okay, next one. So on examination, he appeared to nod his head a lot, and I was wondering whether it was due to weakness or pain in the neck, but otherwise he didn't appear distressed. He looked thin and fragile. His right eye tended to turn in intermittently, and he had a large palpable spleen. It was almost at the midline, so it was huge. The mother, who was a health care professional and could give me the technicalities, explained that the test showed thrombocytopenia, low platelets, hepatosplenomegaly, which is an enlarged liver and spleen, raised liver function tests, and raised alkaline phosphatase in the thousands, which is an enzyme that gives you an indication of bone turnover, amongst other things. And calcium was borderline low. A chest X-ray showed a diffuse sclerotic skeleton. That means it was thickened with an abnormal bone texture. There was what's called a cloaking periosteal reaction, which gave the appearance that there might have been fractures in the ribs. And this is seen in bone fragility states. There was no question of the child being maltreated at all. The bones are clearly abnormal. He was given a provisional diagnosis of osteopetrosis and was awaiting genetic testing at the time of presentation. Now, I don't see osteopetrosis every day of my life, so I had to understand what it was, and that's what I want to explain next to you. It's a word that's derived from the Greek language, osteo meaning bone and petrosis meaning like stone. And it comprises a group of hereditary metabolic bone diseases, all of which detrimentally affect bone growth and remodeling, leading to a generalized osteosclerosis, a thickening of the bone, and potential pathologic fractures, because even though the bone is thickened, it is weakened as well. There's also pancytopenia, because the bone marrow is obliterated, and there's cranial neuropathies, which are problems with the nerves that come out of the skull because of excessive bone growth. And hepatosplenomegaly which is used by the body as an extra source, an extra location to build blood cells because the bone marrow is taken. So as you can see, this is a serious condition, and it's actually fatal in the form that he had it. So there are various types of osteoporosis. The autosomal dominant type is not that severe. Then there's an intermediate type, and then the malignant autosomal recessive form is the full fat form. It's called malignant not because it has anything to do with cancer, but just because it's so severe, and it usually kills children between the age of 2 and 5 if it's untreated. So we're dealing with a really serious condition. In order for you to appreciate what's happening here, I'm going to explain a little bit about bones. So this is a diagram of a femur. You've got the periosteum, which covers the surface of the bone. Then you've got compact or cortical bone, which is really responsible for the load-bearing capacity of bones. And then you've got the spongy bone, where the bone marrow is. And we need to talk about remodeling as well. Even though bones look solid, at cellular level, there's a continual turnover where bone is broken down and bone is laid down. And in the first year of life, this happens to nearly 100% of the skeleton. 100% of the skeleton is replaced. And this rapid remodeling supports growth and development. It maintains bone strength. It repairs any micro damage from daily activity. It gives adaptation to growing, to the changing shape of the body and the change in the vectors of load bearing that go through the bone so that they remain strong and light at the same time. And it's used to repair fractures. They also help to maintain calcium homeostasis because you can also always draw calcium from the bone in an emergency to maintain constant levels. So there are two protagonists in bone remodeling. The osteoclasts, klastos in Greek, breaking down, and they break down the bone, and osteoblasts, which synthesize and build up bone. And they're continually going through the whole bone, breaking it down, remodeling, building it up somewhere else. So this is what an osteoblast looks like. Single nucleus, and this is what an osteoclast looks like. That breaks the bone down. Its membrane is folded so that it maximizes its surface area. And what happens is, in this diagram, it's diagrammatic, okay? It's not as it happens, but basically the osteoclasts come in, they start resorbing calcium, they break down the collagen, and they break down bone. And then the osteoblasts come in, lay down osteoid, and then calcify it. And that's how the bone is reformed. This is a slow AI video, but I'm not going to bother with it because I want to spend the time on the case. So what happens if there's no resorption? Bone accumulates and accumulates and accumulates, and it can't be broken down. So this leads the affected bone to be thickened, but they're abnormally brittle and fracturing. And this is what's happening in this illness. So there's an increased density, which you can see on X-rays. And the following X-rays are not from my patient, but I got them online so you can see what it looks like. So this is healthy bone. You can see the thickening in the cortical area, but it's less dense in the center where the bone marrow is. And this is a child with infantile osteoporosis, and you can see that the whole thing has become calcified. So there's no room for bone marrow there. Again, in the ribs, in the humerus, it's all over calcified. And in the skull, when there's bony overgrowth, you could see how that could cut off all the nerves that come out from the skull. And that leads to a lot of disability and can lead to a lot of pain and it's important nerves, it's cranial nerves. Okay, so back to the first consultation. He didn't look distressed, so I knew there probably weren't a lot of fractures there. The right eye turning inwards was then discovered to be due to the optic nerve on the right eye being affected. The large spleen, again, is because the spleen is being used to produce blood cells because the bone marrow can't. And as I said, there seems to be a lot of bone turnover, but it's more laying it down than breaking it down. So this is a potentially devastating diagnosis for this child. And what I decided to do was repertorize with as many rubrics as I can in order to get a wide spread of potentially helpful remedies without too many omissions. This is RadarOpus analysis, and you can see I've taken rubrics for bones in general, a couple of constitutional features like perspiration on the scalp, the secondary effects like enlarged spleen, laboratory findings of reduced platelets, tendency to fractures, large liver and spleen, nodding of the head, which I thought was quite unusual, and the eye turned inwards. And you get a spread of remedies. You would expect calcarea and phosphorus to be very prominent because they are the main components of hydroxyapatite, which is, you know, what the mineral in bone. Silica, again, plays a role in metabolism of bone. Then we get lycopodium, sulfur, merc, nitric acid, calc phos, and a few others. So it's difficult to know. You can't get any symptoms from the child. All we have are signs and tests. And in this case, in particular, I used a technique which I use very often when I see patients face-to-face, which is muscle testing. If you're interested in the details of the technique, I've written it up fully in Pressing Matter, which changed my practice, in the hpathy.com website, and it's free to obtain. In this case, because the mother and the baby have a close emotional bond and also an energetic connection, it allowed me to test the child through the mother as proxy. But this has to be done only after positive and negative controls are checked, so that I know that what I'm testing is not spurious. So I muscle tested, and the short list of remedies that I decided to test were Calcarea silica, calc phos, Calcarea sanicosa, Calcarea fluorica, Ceanothus, phosphorus, Medorinum, and Hecla lava, all in a 200. There were only 3 remedies that tested strong, which was very helpful because it helped me to narrow things down. Ceanothus, Hecla, and silica. And then I test whether they're compatible with each other or not. And Ceanothus wasn't compatible with Hecla and silica. And because the enlarged spleen, for which Ceanothus is a remedy, was a secondary phenomenon, I decided to concentrate on the primary problem, and I omitted Ceanothus. So I gave silica 200 once weekly and Hecla 200 once weekly. 10 weeks later, the mother reports no obvious changes, but however, there are subtle changes. There's less perspiration on the head. The child has been feeding better, which is really important, growing and gaining weight. So there are some significant changes. The liver function tests are improved, and the parathyroid hormone fell from 45 to 16, and the alkaline phos fell into hundreds instead of thousands of units. The platelets and the hemoglobin rose, which is good, but then fell again. So we got a partial response. There were some improvements. And again, at this point, also it was found that the optic disc, there was pallor on the right. So the optic disc was compromised. And this could account for the turning in of the eye. And then genetic testing confirmed that it was malignant osteopetrosis. And it was a pathogenic variant in the TCI-RG1 gene. And this was reconfirmed by a different lab as well. The mother sent it internationally to somewhere else as well. So this is the one report, and this is the other report. And basically, without bone marrow transplantation, there's not much hope. So diagnosis is no longer in doubt. It has serious implications. The mother was refusing bone marrow transplantation because the survival rate in the local pediatric center had been 0. There were about 12 cases over the years, and it didn't bode well. So here I find myself with a really serious illness, no pressure. So there was some clinical improvement from the remedies, but there was also evidence of progression because there was cranial nerve involvement. So I wanted a change in remedies. I muscle tested again. I widened the testing to include DNA, seeing it's a genetic disease, and some syphilitic remedies as well. So I ended up giving syphilinum 200 every 3 weeks, Hecla weekly, Silica weekly, and DNA weekly as well, all at 200. The third consultation was 11 weeks later. He's feeding well and there's some weight gain. That's good. He was starting on vitamin D, which I'm sure will, help. The bloods were stable. LFTs were lowering. Parathyroid hormone was fluctuating. There was some stability. I muscle tested again. I decided to throw silicon, the element in, as well as silica. And the only thing he needed this time was syphilinum and silica. So monthly and weekly, respectively. And that's what he got. 14 weeks later, the muscles are stronger. He's attempting to crawl and can now sit up. Now, this is really important because naturally, the natural history is that children can't sit up, can't crawl, and when they attempt to do that, they have a lot of bone pain and they fracture. He's feeding well and he's gaining weight, and the patient managed to pull out a tooth. That shows you how compromised the jaw bone metabolism is. The spleen was very enlarged again, and the platelets had dropped. So despite some improvements in the general well-being, the disease is clearly progressing and the bone marrow is being obliterated, and this is what will kill the patient. So I need to address that. So a rethink is necessary. Now the mother is, despite some improvements, is considering bone marrow transplantation abroad where the survival rates seem to be better. So a rethink is necessary. In the interim, I muscle tested. He got Calc Phos 200 monthly and Silica 1M weekly. So what now? I felt I was at the limit of my intellectual ability to find a solution for this case. So I thought, well, maybe I should just dance in the moonlight and sing incantations. But basically, I was thinking,
Would love to see that, by the way.
Intellectually, I knew I wasn't going to reach this case. And if I wasn't careful, we were going to end up all in very deep feces. So I needed a different type of approach. I felt the dancing in the moonlight, it's too cold in Scotland, so I wasn't going to bother with that. But this is the incantation I used, which I'm sure is very familiar to you. Similia similimus curentur. Okay, so the question is, what needs to be cured? Okay, so I asked ChatGPT, and this is where AI comes in, because hundreds of hours of work, hundreds of hours of research were condemned into just a handful of hours to try and tackle this. So there are 6 gene mutations associated with this malignant form, and it's a loss of function mutations. This one was a TCI-RG1, but there's other locations as well. So we know it's this one that's involved in this. The genetic testing showed that. And it leads to an osteoclast-rich version of the condition, which means there's tons of osteoclasts, but they're completely impotent. They're unable to resorb bone. So this is the osteoclast. This is the very invaginated cell membrane to maximize contact with the bone. And basically, the way it resorbs bone is it releases hydrogen ions, so it releases acid, which reabsorbs the mineral of the bone, and then it can break down the collagen. And this ain't happening in this situation. So if you want the details, basically there's a proton ATPase enzyme that's malfunctioning, so it cannot produce acid in the extracellular space, so it can't resorb at all. So there is a problem with the transport of the hydrogen. So without this, there's no resorption. So the next obvious question is, are there any drugs that can replicate the osteoclastic malfunction present specifically in this condition? And the answer from ChatGPT was no, there aren't any. So pressed it further, I will not give up. Any substances that resemble what's going on here? And yes, there was. Okay, that's good enough for me. We'll start with that. So this is the short list. Biphosphonates, which are used to prevent bone resorption in the treatment of osteoporosis. Rankle inhibitors like denosumab, which have the same effect. Cathepsin K inhibitors, which are very difficult to get hold of. But aspirin and non-steroidals happen to have cathepsin K inhibition abilities. So that's a consideration. Some experimental drugs that I didn't have a hope in hell of getting hold of to potentize and make into remedies. And statins, believe it or not, have an effect in bone resorption. And statins are all in fashion nowadays. I wonder what are the unintended consequences of that in terms of bone metabolism in an older age group. But that's an aside. Microtubules inhibitors like colchicine, and proton pump inhibitors, again, these are in vogue, omeprazole, esomeprazole, and so on, have an effect on bone metabolism. So basically, on a practical level, which could I get hold of in potentized forms? And these were the 6 finalists, as it were. Alendronic acid, which is a biphosphonate, denosumab, omeprazole, atorvastatin. I use colchicine instead of colchicum because they're very similar, and aspirin, good old aspirin. So at the 5th consultation, an ultrasound confirmed splenomegaly, which is no big surprise because I could feel it quite easily. MRI revealed thickening of the skull, but no hydrocephalus. And in ophthalmology, the right optic disc was pale, the left was slightly pale. There was no problem with hearing or cardiac function. So I muscle tested the mother. There were 2 remedies from that short list that came up strong, atorvastatin and aspirin, but it was clearly on feeling the tension in the muscle that atorvastatin was stronger than aspirin by far. So atorvastatin, also known as Lipitor, is given to reduce cholesterol, which is probably one of the most misguided medical interventions this century, but we won't go into that. So the child got Calc-Phos 200 twice weekly and atorvastatin 30 twice daily. 4 weeks later, improving. I was surprised that he looked healthy and strong. Something had changed. He was standing and he was attempting to walk. He was reaching all the milestones for his age. I mean, initially he had dropped to below 25 centile. His spleen had reduced in size, and the optic nerve pallor hadn't progressed. In fact, the eyesight had improved since May 2024, which was shown by visual evoked potentials, so activity on the occipital cortex, because the child himself wouldn't be able to tell us. So these are some really, really encouraging results. To stand and attempt to walk requires an integrity of skeletal structure. It can't be done otherwise. And if the disease had progressed the way it would have, this would have been impossible. And the reduction in spleen suggests that the body was carving out some bone marrow in order to do some hemopoiesis. I muscle tested, and all he needed was Atorvastatin 200 twice weekly. So we went up. 6 weeks later, standing independently, but holding on to a finger, for example, he can get up from sitting by himself. The spleen is reducing in size. Surprisingly, didn't need any more Atorvastatin at this point, but Hecla and DNA, which he got once weekly and every 3 weeks, respectively. 6 weeks later, he's standing without support. He's moving around, holding onto objects. Mother says he's desperate to run around. There's not a problem with the skeleton now. He appears completely healthy, except for the right eye turning in a bit. This time he needed Atorvastatin at a higher dose as a single dose, and Hecla and sulfur, but this time plus in solution. I saw him 5 weeks later. There were no issues at 1.5 years old. So that's 15 months from when I first saw him. Can sit and stand, holding onto finger by himself. He runs holding onto the sofa. He has great stamina, determination. So this is phenotypically a child that is healthy with a genetically fatal illness. He got Atorvastatin and sulfur plus. And this was the final consultation because a bone marrow donor was found in Turkey. And the parents had the agonizing decision to take here: do we subject a healthy child through a bone marrow transplantation with bone marrow ablation and replacement with a donor and all the risks that entails? And after a lot of agonizing, they decided they would, for 2 reasons mainly. They didn't feel supported enough by the NHS, and they felt that he may require lifelong homeopathic treatment, while going for the bone marrow transplant would solve that problem. He was in peak condition. Usually by the time a donor is found, these children are not in good condition. And the fact that he was in peak condition allowed him to sail through it. He had a hematopoietic stem cell transplant on the 18th of June. He was doing very well. The platelets were a bit low, so he was in hospital for a bit longer. But she says, I honestly believe that homeopathy had a strong input on his tolerance to chemo and immunotherapy and recovery post-transplant. So conclusions from this case are that Atorvastatin, which is hitherto unknown in potentized form, was very, very helpful. It was arrived by a combination of classical principles coupled with unconventional methodology, i.e. with AI. And the cure symptoms will be found in RadarOpus under Atorvastatin. I've given them to Luke already. And what's really interesting is it opens up a lot of questions. How the homeopathic treatment managed to change gene expression in someone who has an autosomal recessive condition, where both sets of genes, there's only 2 sets of genes, and both of them are inactive. So what are the mechanisms involved here? Is the vital force trumping DNA, or are there other mechanisms involved? It's really fascinating because it opens up a whole new vista. Can the vital force overrule genetic expression? And this same approach offers a beacon of hope for sufferers of this condition who don't have access to transplantation, because proof of concept is you can get a child healthy with homeopathy in this situation. And when I chose Atorvastatin, it was based purely on the genetic defect. So does that mean that everyone with the same gene defect could benefit from Atorvastatin? And if there were other genes involved, would they each have just one specific remedy that could unlock the key? Also, this approach can be used even if you're going to get a bone marrow transplant, but to keep the person stable so that they don't deteriorate until that happens. Because even in survivors with with marrow transplants, there are usually irreversible complications. There's blindness, there's neurological problems, they're almost universal. And it has profound implications for the treatment of other genetic conditions, especially for single gene defects, where you can just go into ChatGPT, find out exactly what the defect is, match it to a substance, and perhaps, ameliorate it. So homeopathy combined with AI gives us new tools to treat difficult conditions and conditions that before may have been totally incurable. And I will stop share and we can have a general discussion.
That was amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gabby.
You're welcome.
I'm just going to say one thing before we get Luke, to the more technical stuff and the questions. I just want to focus everybody for 1 second on something which Gabriel said, which is absolutely important. Gabriel is a doctor. He's a homeopath. He did the job. He did his work as a professional. And then he just used an AI tool to summarize information quickly and help him gather information. That's a really good example of how to use AI. It's not to get the answer, it's to help you study in order to get something which you can't go and read. It would take you weeks perhaps. So that's a really key important factor. You've got a doctor here who is using technology to his advantage in order to find information, not trying to cut corners. And that's, I think, what is the key message really for me. So thank you, Gabriel.
If I would like to add also that it's definitely not a panacea. For example, a couple of days ago, I wanted ChatGPT to summarize Michal Yakir's information on ancient plants. And it came up with absolute rubbish. I mean, it had thrown in lichens in row 1, and the whole information was just it's so inaccurate that I just deleted it.
Yeah.
And another example.
That's
sorry, Luke,
because Yakir hasn't published the book yet, and so
okay.
The AI has no access to it.
So it just lies.
Yes, but another question is, what is the evidence for harm from vaccination? And all the evidence, the official evidence, is that there's no harm from vaccination, be it whatever vaccine there is. But AI doesn't have the discrimination to know that most of the clinical trials on vaccinations, except for one in India, 1980 on tuberculin, none of them have inert placebos, so that you can never know the true effect of any ill effects of vaccination. And that's something that AI will never pick up. So there's a level of discernment that you need to use if you're using AI, because it can lead you, you can go far wrong with it, but on the other hand, you can go far right with it as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think it goes back to what I said earlier. You can't expect it to think. All it can do is like be a sounding board for your thought process, and then the more specific information you can give it, the better it will reflect your line of thinking, and just roll with it and expand upon it. And that's what it's very good for. If you really tell it what you're thinking and you don't go to it like, what do you think about this? It will just trot out something very generic and unthought through because it can't think for itself. So, yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. That's, an amazing job. And I will run through some questions for you. I tried to answer some of them while you were talking. So there's a question from Dr. Kirandeep. He says, can you explain how we evaluate the remedy response in the case as we're using more than one drug force?
Yes, I basically started using physiological remedies, and they did have an effect, but they didn't have an effect on the key symptom, which is bone marrow obliteration. So I had to find something that would address that. And after he started Atorvastatin, you could see it. It's almost like the vital force was alive and well. There was a change, and that really is observation that helps you evaluate it. And then when you see after that all the tests normalizing, you know you're on the right track. And this is a complex situation. This is never going to be a one remedy case.
No, I said the main thing is keep the child alive rather than worry about remedy evaluation, right? Yeah. Carolyn's asked, how did you find the 6 remedies before the 4th remedy? I don't really understand what she means with that.
Okay, I made a short list of all the possible candidates, then of phone around pharmacies and see what was available, what could be made, and those were the final 6. So at that point, I didn't know if one was going to work or if any of them were going to work. But I bought them all in order to muscle test in the clinic and let the vital force of the baby speak to me and guide me, because otherwise it's an eeny, meeny, miny, mo. You have no idea. It's at random. And it was very, very clearly Atorvastatin, so I just run with that.
And did you place the remedies? So did you potentize the remedies and place them on baby's skin when you muscle tested, or how did you?
I just the mother was holding the baby in its lap.
Yeah.
I first tested the mother, make sure that she was working well, that there are positive and negative controls. Then she was holding the child, and I muscle tested on her arm, and then I placed and made sure the child's working well energetically, and then I just placed the remedy on her lap, so within their energy field, and tested one at a time. And then tested for potency, for frequency, whether it should be in tablet form, whether it should be in liquid form and plussed. Nice. So I go through a systematic check of everything to see what works best.
Yep. So you're actually getting the answer from the vital force itself rather than having...
Who else? Yes.
Yeah. That's a real plus. I can understand why it changed your practice. Yeah. How do you do it when you're on Zoom then and you can't muscle test?
It's very difficult. If I've got a patient who's really serious, like it's a cancer case or something like that, I will use my wife and test by proxy. So I get the person at the other end to do the positive and negative controls. And if my wife responds and the patient responds, we know we have an energetic link.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, this sounds almost like witchcraft, but if you think of quantum entanglement and think in that direction, then it is possible and it can be very helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, very good. Okay, let's see. So how did you potentize the atorvastatin? There's another question.
I ordered it from a pharmacy.
Got the pharmacy to do it. Very good. And then what are the indicators for the different remedies in combination, as I didn't follow?
When I gave more than one remedy, it was purely because the muscle tested strong, both for the individual remedies, but also for the combination. So initially, I think it was silica and Hecla tested strong, but when I added Cyanothus to that, it weakened the person. So I knew there was a clash there.
Right.
And because Cyanothus was given for an enlarged spleen only, it's symptomatic. It's not addressing the underlying problem. I left that out so that silica and the Hecla could work on bone metabolism.
Interesting.
Is that clear?
Yeah. Well, it is to me. It was Dr. Kiran Deepkan maybe right again. So Jenna says, so all of the prescriptions were made using muscle testing, no repertorizations other than the initial one.
Yeah, the initial repertorization just gave me a range, but frankly, it's very difficult to individualize from that.
Yeah. How old was the baby? 4.5 weeks?
4 months.
4 months, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Lauren says, did she test the genes after treatment?
That's a very good question. I haven't managed to get her to do that, but it would be quite interesting. I doubt it could repair itself, but yes, I mean, After she got better, I mean, it was such a relief for her that she doesn't really want to go digging in again. And
Right.
so it might be difficult to obtain that information. And I can't blame her, but it would be fascinating to see that.
And Esme asked, can you please remind us what was the key question asked in AI that led to the prescription?
Yes, but basically, I asked AI, what is the lesion in this gene defect? And then, are there any substances, drugs, natural substances, or whatever that can mimic this defect, that can replicate this defect? And it said no. So I said, is there anything that comes close to it that can resemble the outcome? So it's resembling the outcome that did it, that brought the results.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Nice.
if like cures like, then it doesn't necessarily have to be the same mechanism. It just has to match the outcome.
Yeah. Yeah. It's similar as not exact, isn't it? Yeah. Nice. So then there's a question from Jenna. Epigenetic expressions are responding to the environment. Changing the environment changes those expressions.
Yes, but you need to have functioning genes to be able to express in the first place. The epigenetic effects will modulate what the DNA churns out, but if it's churning out enzymes that are completely non-functional, that that bit is still obscure. It'll be very interesting to find out because I think it's fundamental, not only for genetic problems, but even for regular gene expression.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, Rachel wants to know if you can share which lab she used for the genetic tests because she wants to have she was looking for a lab that will do a test like that.
I would have to check the notes. If you want to contact me, you can do that. I'm at HOMDOC, homdoc@outlook.com.
Okay, I'll put that in there. I've lost where I was now. There's lots of big ups saying that was very amazing. What a great outcome. So
I have to say, I learned a lot from that myself. I think there was an element of luck there that atorvastatin was a remedy that has already been created. So a bit of serendipity there.
Oh, did it come from? Oh, sorry, I'm getting confused reading these comments. Okay, so hang on, let's go back to where we were. Okay, William asks if you would have considered using noetic preparations of some of the previously unpatentized substances that were among the long lists.
I'm sorry, but I don't know anything about noetic preparations.
It's writing the name on paper.
Oh, it adds other variables. If my back was against the wall, maybe I would have done that for cathepsin, but I decided the first line was to cut out as many variables that I can control for, and so I ordered the remedies.
Nice. There's more of a question for us here from Praveen that so many remedies in RadarOpus, but no information provided. Yep. And I mean, that's just because there are a lot of substances that nobody's written Materia Medica for as of yet. But we do strive to make these remedies available through abbreviations in the software. So there's, some 8,000 or 9,000 abbreviations of different substances that are available. But yeah, if someone needs to write the Materia Medica first, and if there isn't, then you can quite easily he's doing a grumpy emoji at me. Come on, Praveen, give me a chance. You can just use AI to ask for information on things that don't have Materia Medica yet. There we go. Thanks for that, mate. That's nice. Okay, Dr. Kieran Deep says, how did you rule out colchicum versus statin 30?
It was just muscle testing. Colchicum was weak.
Yep. Lovely. Okay, and then Dr. Kieran Deep says, a good application of AI. Well done.
Thank you.
Great case. Thanks for sharing. Lots of applause. Wow. Frank Muller says, look into the work of Vera Scheibner on vaccination damage. She now knows many sources that prove that. Okay. I can see what AI says about Vera Scheibner. Probably won't be especially positive, but you could give it a go.
I'll tell you a funny story. I thought that this case was worthy of publication, so I'm trying to get it published in a peer-reviewed journal. So I wrote it up exactly the way I wanted it, and then I decided, okay, let's see how ChatGPT would report it. So I put the information through, and it said, I'm sorry, I can't write a report because there's no proven evidence that homeopathy could have been curative in this case.
Yeah.
Which I thought, there's no evidence that homeopathy can work in such a serious case, and you should really, go down the conventional medicine route, and it wouldn't do it. So I
Yeah.
said, okay, even if you don't want to prove that it's curative, because you can't prove that something's curative in a case of one. It's highly suggestive, but that's all you can do. It just fought me the whole way, and it was asking me obfuscating questions. So it's got its own agenda to try and block every step I wanted to take. So I'm so glad I didn't use it to write my report, but I think there's a huge bias there that you have, as homeopaths, have to remember. It's there. It's in the fabric of what ChatGPT uses. So it has one version of reality, and fortunately, we have a different version of reality. So don't confuse realities and don't limit yourself by ChatGPT's reality.
I mean, I only ever talk to it about esoteric subjects, so it never bothers questioning me on things anymore, because it's got to know that I'll not interested in that. And
I should probably add, I mean, we're talking about ChatGPT, but remember, there are many other alternatives. There's DeepSeek, there's Perplexity, there's Grok. So, I mean, obviously, they've all been built by different companies, different programmers. They have different tones. So sometimes, I mean, I've done that myself. I've kind of tried to ask the same questions to different models and just see what happens. Sometimes it's also interesting to do.
So, Marco, from your own experience, which would you rate the best for medical homeopathic things?
Good question. I find totally personal answer, but I find Perplexity to be quite good because Perplexity, from what I've seen, is very cold-blooded. Perplexity is very it's been kind of built in a more academic style, i.e., you ask a simple question and it will just give you an academic style answer, which means here is a list of websites that I found. Based on this, here is the answer. I find ChatGPT to be much more conversational, interesting, but it can lead you in other places. Grok is it's been built by Elon Musk, so it's funny. It just comes out with weird stuff, but it's more of a fun thing. DeepSeek has a completely different model. It's a Chinese one. I like DeepSeek to sort of bounce off because it normally gives me very different answers. So I normally go, Perplexity first, ChatGPT, then DeepSeek can basically go between the three. But worth a try.
Do they all have free versions?
All of them, every single one. And of course, if you sign up, then they will also learn based on what you're asking them. So if you use enough of them for a few months, then it does become interesting because it will begin sort of answering you with the same style. But yeah, just personal. Let me know.
Okay.
if you like, there's still good discussion going on. I thought I would just take the opportunity to share something else the Homeopathic Practice Partner does well. This is one of the queries that it has as a preset. Analyze the case summary, outline the themes you can perceive running through it as a golden thread, whilst using semantic search to find similarity with your Mappamundi database, following the principle of main and sub-axes as polarities. Okay, so it's very technical. It just shows that you have to brief it down to the fine point if you want it to be good. Okay, so then it accesses the data there. Okay, so it shows where it's been reading, and then
And if I may add again, because I had a few public and private questions about students again today. So again, this is, I would say, the beginning of a better assistant also for your students, because it's been trained properly on classical homeopathy and it's been trained to answer with a certain tone. So this should be a far better, place to go and send them compared to just a random chat GPT or a random assistant. Just to teach them to study stuff, but it's just a little bit more, I would say, trustworthy, not 100%, but at least it should give you slightly better answers, because the danger of a student is to just go off and ask random questions to an AI assistant that hasn't been trained and that could just lie out of its thing without the student understanding, which leads to the student not learning properly. I would also like, if I may, to just add another thing, because people were talking about obviously AI modules being, biased, again, so towards homeopathy, of course. So I just want to reiterate again, we are building something that will be unbiased. It's a big project that we're working on, very big project. But I want to explain it, because whilst we are doing it, there's nothing wrong with anyone else also trying to do it. There may be a future not too far away where maybe we'll get all together as a community and get this done, which would be a dream for me. But essentially, when you talk of LLMs, you're talking of having a large server where you decide what input goes in. So of course, if you use a large language model, which takes information from the internet, the answer can come from anywhere. If you have a secured, which is what we're working on, large language model where you only feed scientific data, then the only information it can get is that scientific data. And that's where you get validity of information. And that's what we are looking to basically work towards. But it's a big thing, you know. I mean, we are, in theory, one of the largest, if not the largest, software company in the world, but we're still relatively small. We're not huge. So we are seeking funding, we're seeking help, but yeah, that's what we're working towards.
Julek, just raised the point that, it's not great to be constantly calling, the AI servers because of the amount of energy and resources that's using. So this is a template of something that AI has basically coded for me. So I've given it the instructions of what I wanted, and then it's written the code in Python for me. And basically, this will be a tool that hopefully we can include in RadarOpus that will work locally on your machine. It doesn't use AI at all, but it uses pre-built semantic modeling database that, I'm not exactly sure what it does, but it splits up the words and does something called vectorizing so that it can find similar words to what you write and look for them in a repertory. So if we say you can search, and this is just running locally on my computer. It's not using AI at all, but it's had a specific kind of training and has certain hooks that it knows that if you write headache, that it should look for head pain. So head pain, temples, reading, ag, it's right there, the rubric that you're looking for. And it also shows like literal matches as well. So you can see how this technology is going to make homeopathy more accessible for newcomers, and that's what I'm excited about because I teach, right, and I see a lot of first years come in and they say, like they don't necessarily, when you are drawn to homeopathy, it's often because of like coming through a healing crisis yourself or a family member has done so, and you've got that real like interest sparked in it, but you don't have a medical background. You don't know a lot of the terminology. You're not expected to open a massive book like this and learn how to drill down into symptoms and read things back to front and all the rest of it. So having tools that make it a little bit more accessible and easy to get into something like repertorization so that you don't have to know exactly the right terminology to get started. I do think that's a valid and important aspect of these new technologies that work with language to make our lives easier.
Absolutely, Luke. There was, Luke, a question, and then we can start wrapping up, from Brigitta, just asking also whether we could do another one of these focusing more specifically on RadarOpus and cases and just practical examples of how to use AI and RadarOpus and homeopathy. So, I mean, happily.
Yeah, definitely. And I know Nyla, who's working with us now, is using the Homeopathic Practice Partner a lot. So it would be good to get her input on the next webinar. So Nyla, consider that your invitation. And we can schedule more. Yeah, we have the regular Q&A thing booked, so we'll put in some more AI ones, and hopefully you guys will be using the tool and giving us feedback and telling us when it's hallucinating, because of course it will. And so don't blame me.
Yeah, and if I may, feel free to send feedback, because of course the more we get feedback, the more we can train the model. So because it's a community thing, the more we know, the more we're gonna try and fix and improve. So
right. There's a quick question from Wakar about because I am working on a new repertory. So
among the other 4,500 things that you're working on.
Yeah, exactly. This one it won't need AI because it's very simple. That's the whole idea with it. It's the idea is that it's large building blocks that make repertorizing a case more easy. You approach it in a clams kind of way, like you put in the affinities of the case, you put in the modalities. It's got a pain chapter, and it's got psychological, emotional themes, and befoulments, which are very similar to like ailments from really. And so the theme section is derived from the thematic repertory, which I already made, and is, like Murilli's themes and like QRep, where I've taken similar mind rubrics and combined them, so that you don't have to. It makes it easier. You're less likely to miss certain remedies, and it has families and remedies in it. And then with the affinities, I basically took Boja's synoptic key and went through all the chapters and took in that repertory. It has at the start of each chapter just, anus and rectum in general, appetite in general. And I just expanded each one using synthesis, Knurr's repertory, and Murphy's repertory. And I used AI to teach me how to search, write macros for searching databases quickly, and then adding all of the remedies quickly. So whilst these are massive rubrics, I haven't done that by hand. I've gone through the database, extracted them, compiled them. I had a code which would pull out, if a remedy appeared more than once, it would only take the one with the highest degree and delete all the others. So a lot of it's done with the help of Python programming. And so, yeah, you've got all those affinities. This is built out of the ailments from chapter, but again, expanded so that they're larger rubrics. Oh, and that has crashed. So it's probably time to call it quits. But that repertory will be the first version of it is ready, but it's, when is anything like that ever ready? It's, it's a massive undertaking. I used the modalities section from Boninghausen's pocketbook and again expanded that. I went through all of the aggravations, but I haven't gone through all of the ameliorations yet. So you'll see that those are more like for like what the pocketbook has.
So Luke, I have just lied to everyone and said that hopefully the new repertory is out before Christmas. Pressure is on.
No, well, the first version's ready, mate. We just need icons.
I know.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
I think it's worth, we'll put it out there, and hopefully people will use it. And
yeah,
basically, because the rubrics are big and broad, you're going to find small plant remedies. Especially if you just put affinities in, you'll find all these small plant remedies that will never come up in a normal repertorization. Then you just need to put in one or two smaller rubrics or filters from kingdoms or miasms, and then your repertorization will be very, very coherent. If you only use rubrics from this repertory, you're going to end up with very big, a lot of results to go through. So it's designed to be used with other repertories, really.
Okay.
All right.
So I think we can go towards a wrap up, as it's been now an hour and a half. So guys, thank you very, very much. Gabriel, hands up, really. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Luke, thank you. Sarah, everybody. We will do more of these. Of course, do let us know if you have specific wishes for the next Q&A. We do run them with Luke once every 2 weeks anyway. This was a bit of a special one. Like we said, it will be recorded in the RadarOpus Academy as usual, and more of this soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.